Hello and welcome to today's show. I'm Stephen Gardner, best-selling author of Taming Wall Street, and I have a good friend here with me, Ray Ross from the YouTube channel Financial Literacy 101. And Ray, welcome to today's show.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. All
Good.
right, so you do financial coaching with clients to help them with wealth, getting out of debt, understanding the stock market, up and coming stocks, all kinds of great areas of the financial world. I also do financial coaching.
Yes.
And so, you and I bounce ideas off of each other. Just this morning, I was texting you for some help with a client I was working with.
Now, I'm still going to send that out to you, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So on today's call, what I want to do is I want to talk about common things that you and I deal with when it comes to financial coaching clients. So when you think about the most common areas of finance that you and your clientele describe or go through together or work on, what would you say are some common areas in the financial world that people are reaching out to you to get help with?
Well, the most common one is actually handling their debt.
Okay.
Even though that a lot of them may call me or email me concerning like what investments, what stocks should they actually invest in. But the number one thing I see is debt. And the number one thing I tell them is that let's first work up your budget. Let's first comb through your budget. In order to actually figure out your debt and how to pay that off effectively, we need to have a solid budget. And believe it or not, some people say they may have a budget, but their budget is in their head. The budget is not on a piece of paper. It's not on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not in some budget software. It's in their head. I said, well, let me see your budget. Oh, well, I have this bill, this bill, this bill. I'm like, okay, well, that's not a budget. It's, because essentially you don't know the exact dollar amount and cent amount of how much you're paying to each, whether it be service or debt collector or someone you actually owe money to. So that's imperative to actually have a budget before you start to work on your debt.
Yeah, I see that with the people that I help all the time. What would you say? Because there's roughly 4 or 5 intelligent ways to go about getting out of debt. When you work through getting out of debt with your clientele, what would you say is the number one method or approach that you take with your clients?
The number one approach that I absolutely love is the debt snowball.
Okay.
I know you're familiar with that. And basically you take all of your debt and you pay off the smallest amount. Regardless of the interest rate, you pay off the smallest amount first, and then you work your way up. So essentially, the smallest amount that you have, let's take for instance, is a $500 medical bill. And then the next bill is maybe a $1,000 student loan, so on and so forth. So you pay the minimum on all your debt, but that smallest debt, that smallest amount, you put all the extra cash, any remaining cash that you have, and you attack that particular debt until you eliminate it. Then the money that you were putting on that particular debt, you now reallocate it to the next smallest debt until you pay that one on, until you eventually alleviate and greatly decrease majority of your debt.
Yeah, you probably remember this Saturday morning cartoons like Bugs Bunny or something. They'd start out at like the top of the ski resort. Yeah. And they'd like trip and fall, and that snowball would get bigger and bigger and do more and more damage. And that's essentially what you're doing with your clients, is just creating more and more momentum to wipe that debt out.
Exactly. And what's funny about that, you should say that, Steve, is that believe it or not, I used to be part of surveys to see psychologically how people actually think about it, right? So most people will think, let me attack the largest amount first, because that is the one that's really hurting me. And I was like, well, no, essentially, if you get rid of the smaller ones and those those compounding interest rates, then you will free up so much cash that you wouldn't even know how much money you actually had. But when you attack that largest one, guess what? You're still paying off those little small ones that's really attacking and knick-knacking you, the entire way, where you could actually eliminate those and sometimes 1 to 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, tell me if you found this, but like when one of the things to keep that momentum going, right, is having an accountability coach. But
Definitely.
but the other side of it is starting with those small ones. Is when somebody pay, like let's say that they have 8 debts, right?
Yeah.
And then they get one paid off. It's like such a boost in self-esteem,
Yeah.
right? And like it just releases this like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And I love getting those emails from people when they're like, hey Steve, I just paid off another debt. And I'm like, yes, I love
Yes.
hearing
And
that.
it
So
actually makes you feel good as a coach, because I know with you and some of your clients, we were talking about this yesterday as well, is that when people have accountability, someone that holds them accountable for a promise or contract for themselves, like, I want to do this, I need to do this. And then you say, as a coach, I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'm going to walk with you. I'm not going to lead you. I'm not going to, baby you. I'm not going to be behind you. I'm going to walk with you through the jungle. I think that was the analogy that you were using. And that was spot on. I was like, yeah, you're right. It's about accountability versus doing all the work for someone, because
yeah.
they feel a sense of accomplishment that they even like, oh, I'll never be out of debt. But when you help someone out, it gives you that euphoria that, yes, I really helped somebody, and then they can live a better life.
Yeah, I have people ask me all the time, like, why should I pay you to be my financial coach? And I'm like, well, do you need help? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, there's the first reason, right? But the second reason is we need mentors, right? Somebody who's
Yeah.
been through the jungle before and can say, hey, here's the fastest path through the forest to get you out of debt, right?
Yeah.
Like think about just off the top of my head, like Mount Everest, right?
Okay.
They still pay the people that live at the base of Mount Everest to take them up the mountain,
Yes.
even though they've got all the best equipment in the world. They've got the money, they've got the experience, they've been practicing, they've got
They're in
all the
shape. Yeah.
protective gear, they've been working out. They still need somebody to guide them up the mountain because they know the path up the
Exactly.
mountain, right?
Exactly.
That's another great reason.
I mean, they, like you said, they're being guided. The guys are not walking for them; they're being guided. And anytime someone may ask me that, it's about, again, first of all, I contribute to you accountability. It's like, I played college football, right? Before college, I played high school football. So essentially, I already knew how to play football. But why do we have coaches?
Yeah.
To get better, to be more efficient, to have better productivity. So, so there's a lot of good reasons why we all have coaches. It's kind of like right now, me and my girlfriend, we are in boot camp. I know how to work out. I've been working out, my entire life. But it's always good for someone to guide you through things to yield better results.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. For most people, I find it's not a lack of intelligence. It's I don't know the fastest path from A to B.
True.
And if you already have someone who's been from A to B 100 times, it just shortcuts the time. And when it comes to money, time is money, right? Like I'll give you an example.
Time is definitely money.
Yeah, it just about 20 days ago, I was working with a woman in Illinois, and we were able to shave 11 years off of her debt.
Wow.
That's a big chunk of time.
That's a big chunk of time.
And it amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars in saved interest,
Wow.
right? So anyway, that's neat. Let me ask you this. Tell me just a little bit about your childhood. Like, did you grow up around money and around examples of money, or did you have to kind of cut your own path with reading and education and finding mentors?
Well, let me first start off with this. I would love to say that people need to understand that you are the hero of your own story. Is in your back. It's in your back.
Yes, yeah,
But no, I definitely grew up in a low impoverished neighborhood. Some people would like to refer to as the hood or the ghetto. However, I just know that it was low impoverished. And my family and myself, we didn't have a concept of money. The only thing I knew about money is you go out, you work your butt off, and then you come home, you pay your bills, and then you spend it on whatever you want and need. Okay. So essentially, that is not a healthy relationship with money. It's very unhealthy because the information that I've obtained over the years, if I would have had this information then, I would definitely be a millionaire. Okay. On my channel, I make the joke that I'm a thousandaire. I'm not 100,000aire. I'm a thousandaire. I have thousands here and there, but I am nowhere near rich. But I am much better off from the information and the certifications that I received over the years when it comes to finance and money. Because as a child, man, I was extremely poor. Me and my mom, we were actually homeless for a week or so. I remember walking 2 miles to my Uncle Dennis' apartment to get 2 eggs to make an egg sandwich. So we were doing extremely hard. Like, we were impoverished. Okay, she didn't even make enough, money to even file for taxes. I didn't even know what taxes was because she didn't have to file them. Right? She didn't make enough. The only job I recall my mom having is working at McDonald's. Right? And unfortunately, she passed away when I was 12 years old because she suffered from lupus. But other than that, that's the only job. And that goes into a whole nother segment, but that has to do with education because she had to drop out of school and with her brothers and sisters, because our grandmother died. But nonetheless, I never understood, never had a healthy relationship with money.
Okay. So how did you get to that healthy relationship with money? Because, sadly, a lot of our country, about 50%, they just live paycheck to paycheck. And it's not from a lack of intelligence. It could be a lack of opportunity. It could just be a lack of know-how or education. So how do you think the majority of people escape that?
Well, I know for me, it was a lack of education. I remember in the Boys and Girls Club, his name was Mr. Brookins. I don't know if he's still around, Mr. Brookins. And he used to always say, he said it like this, and I'm not trying to be funny. He's like, hey, man, you got to save your money, man. And so one day, he always used to say that. I'm very young. I'm like 14, 15 years of age. And he always said, I said, okay, save my money. Save my money for what? He said, one day, you're not going to be young and handsome, so you're going to need money to take care of yourself. Yeah. And as a 15-year-old, I'm not thinking anything, but it hit me when another gentleman by the name of Derek Goddard, who was a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer football player, told me that, he understood that football was a short moment in his life and that he would take other courses to be more marketable. But the main thing is the money that he made in the National Football League, he would save, invest. Okay. And that would really spark an interest in me because we had some similarities. We have some commonalities and also things in common, hobbies or whatever. So I took to that and I was like, okay, I need to learn about money because the one thing about money, some people are like, oh, I don't like talking about money. I don't like doing this about money. But the key thing is money is in every aspect of your life, regardless of what you think, whether it be your electric bill, your food, your car, gas. Money is in every aspect of everyone's life. And if you don't care about money, money will not take care of you. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, it almost behaves like a living organism, right? Like if you take care of it, it wants, like a dog, right? You take care of it, it wants to stay with you. And if you don't, man, it runs away.
It does. It does. Money, leave me now. So what about you though, Stephen? I know you have quite a few clients as well as me, but what is the number one thing that plagues your clients when it comes to their finances?
Oh, it's the same thing. They want to know, okay, how do I become a good saver, right? Like if they have surplus money, how do I become a good saver? And we have to work through that. And then it's like, okay, where can I get the biggest return for my money? And in most cases, until you're out of debt, paying off your debt is the biggest return on your money, right? Like I talked to somebody in May, and he's trying to put away as much money as he can into this 401k. And I said, how much have you averaged? And he said 5%. I said, okay, so you're putting all this money towards something that may or may not earn 5%. Now, sadly, his portfolio went down, right? But I said, you've got 6 credit cards with an average of 24 to 28% interest.
Woo!
So you're losing a lot of money to pick up a little money, right? And
it doesn't balance out.
It doesn't balance out, right? And so we were able to stop the 401k and divert that over towards getting out of debt, right? Well, maybe he's not earning 28%, but he's saving 28%. And that adds up really, really quick, right? Because compound interest can compound against you as well.
I tell people that all the time.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, when it comes to debt, I really like the snowball method. I use it. I have about 5 different methods, and it, depending on the person, but one that I really like is called the cash flow index method.
Okay.
And with the cash flow index method, we line up all of their debts and the amount, and we line up all of the minimum payments. And then you divide the debt by the minimum payment, and that's going to give us an index score.
Okay.
And then from there, we go off of the smallest one, right? So it's a little bit different because unlike the snowball method, we might actually go after a bigger debt. But the reason we do that is if it will pay off and create a larger amount of cash flow for the snowball method. So I'll give you an example, right? Let's say you had a credit card where it had like $500, right? And you're like, okay, the minimum is, $25. I'm going to attack that because then when I pay off that $500, I get to cheer. Yay, right?
Right.
But let's say that you have a car payment and there's only like 2 payments left on it, and your payment's like $300 or $400, right? If we start attacking that, now instead of paying off the $500 that has 25 extra dollars when we're done, we pay off the car that has $300 extra dollars when we're done. Okay. And that allows us to carry a bigger snowball forward. So it's kind of a combination of cash flow and the snowball method.
I was going to say, it's almost like you're using Debt Snowball and the Debt Avalanche.
Yes, it's like a combination of the two.
Okay. Yeah.
But to call it the snowball avalanche, it's a tongue twister.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we call it the cash flow index method, right?
Cash flow index method.
Yes. And so anyway, that's one that I use a lot with my clientele. And then, but sometimes it does make sense to focus on the wealth, and sometimes it makes sense to take money that they can't pull out to pay off debt and get that to work in one of my strategies. But in most cases, if somebody's carrying a large amount of debt, then it does make sense to attack the debt, because once you free all that cash flow up, now we can go get some money, right? Now we can start building some real wealth.
And the one that people absolutely love to hate, this method right here it's basic, it's common, but people love to hate it. Dramatically cutting your expenses.
Yeah.
That's the one that people love to hate, because people, I'm including myself, we love to go out to eat. But that is one of the most, astronomical, extremely large bills. Like this last week, we door dashed. It was $40. Do you know how much food you can buy with $40?
At the grocery store.
You probably feed yourself for a week and a half, but that was one meal for 3 people.
Yeah.
So dramatically cutting your expenses, reducing your electricity, like simple stuff. People leaving lights on, you turn lights off. Like, I was telling you the other day, I'm building a smart home, so everything is pretty much automated. We don't really burn any additional electricity. So dramatically cutting your bills in every aspect of your life actually frees up more cash flow in order to pay off your debt. But we get so used, I know a lot of people, unfortunately, during this pandemic have lost their jobs, and they're used to anywhere from a $40,000 salary up to a $150,000 salary. but now they're getting no salary, or a portion of their week is being furloughed. So they're not getting the same amount of salary or paycheck that they're used to receiving, but they're still living like they are.
Yeah.
And so for the times, you must change the way you go about things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I did a YouTube live a couple nights ago, and somebody said, how do I start saving money? And it's like, there has to be a margin between what you make and what you spend.
Definitely.
If there's no margin, there's no money to save,
Exactly.
or there's no money to drive that debt down. Right.
Yeah.
So you've got to be actively creating the margin. I mean, I should write a book called Winning in the Margin. That'd be a great title.
I mean, can I be a co-author?
Yes, write that down.
Be a co-author. And
Yeah.
number one thing I tell my clients as well is when they say, hey, I don't have any wiggle room in my finances, I don't have any wiggle room in my budget. And I tell them, I promise you, I can free up $100 from your budget. Once we sit down and go over your budget, I'll free up $100, or if I can't, I'll give you $100. But here's the thing, it goes back to dramatically cutting your expenses. When I tell people where you have cable television, you have DirecTV, I will probably say, hey, you might just want to have Netflix and leave it like that. Have Netflix, internet, that's it. But some people will have, listen to this, they will have Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, cable television, and they do pay-per-view. I'm like, whoa, how much TV are you watching? And this is not to, put anyone down, but we have to really think about what does the house really need? And Netflix, with a combination of maybe Prime Video, because most people have Prime, so you get Prime Video automatically, that would suffice you, especially during a hard time like this, whether it's a pandemic or not. I don't watch, we don't watch too much TV in here, but when I do, I'm falling asleep from it anyway. So, I mean, there's methods that I try to help people to get over, but they are difficult when you enjoy something and now someone is saying it's probably best for you to cut it out for a short time, not a long time, for a short time.
Well, anytime you restrict something, people kick back on it, but that doesn't mean that it's not good for them in the long run. But they have to come to that conclusion themselves, right? Is this a higher priority than getting the new iPhone or the new Air Jordans or that vacation or whatever it is? You have to just kind of think through that. So, Definitely. Well, hey, this has been fun. I want to thank you for being on today and sharing that, because I think the people that watch this, they're going to fall into that category. Maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of people right now that are going, okay, how do I create that margin so that I can dramatically drive down my debt? Or how do I take that first baby step towards savings or investing? And that's where having a coach can come into play. Certainly your YouTube channel is for free. My YouTube channel is for free, and they can continue to learn that. But if somebody did want to, watch more content produced by you or even work with you, how could they get a hold of you?
Well, my YouTube channel is Financial Literacy 101, or you can actually type in Ross World. That's another entity that you can go through. And an email that people can contact me is rossworldllc@gmail.com. That's rossworldllc@gmail.com. And from that point, once we establish a good business relationship, I will give them my number so we can actually talk on the phone and do a one-on-one and go through things with the people.
Great. Well,
what about yourself? Because we're going to list these videos on both our channels. So what about for you, Stephen? What's your contact information for my viewers?
Oh, yeah. If they want to look up yourbridgeplan.com, they can certainly check out my website, my books, a little bit more about me. You can also type in Stephen Gardner, Stephen with a PH, on YouTube, and you'll see this face. Okay. Well, hey, thank you again for coming on and sharing the wisdom of what you do with your clients.
Thank you. And thank you, Stephen.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You as well.
Okay, we're out on my end. You still recording on your end?
Just kidding.
I was like...